Hi again, people. It's a pretty good video. This ABC investigators did a nice job. Again, I'm always in favor when the media is disliked by the police, because that means they're holding them accountable. The media should not be friends with government and should not be liked by government. They should be the watchdog for we the people against government. And unfortunately, now most media just works for the left-wing government party. Anyway, let's take a look at this video here.
To the chest, this for a bicycle theft? Outside experts say it's yet another abuse of force by the Glendale Police Department.
It's the same department where we exposed officers tasing a man 11 times, including one with an officer pulling down the suspect's short and stunning him in his genitals.
ABC 15.
Yeah, I did a video on that. I wasn't convinced that he got him in the groin, but whatever.
Investigator Dave Biskobing joining us now on this. Dave?
Yeah, now keep in mind, everything you're about to see is for a bicycle theft. In fact, Glendale set up a bait bike sting operation. This wasn't a suspected violent crime.
Okay, so when they say he set up a bait sting, later on in the newscast, they make it sound like security just found them and called the police. He's saying it's a bait sting, which means it's the same thing we used to set up for bait cars for stolen vehicles. We drop a car off in a high theft area, leave it with the running, do some sort of skit to where an undercover would get in an argument and jump in a car, get in a car right now, and they drive off and they'd be like, oh man. You basically set up targets of opportunity and you allow. It's not entrapment because we're not setting the criminal crime into mind. If I got out of the car and go, hey man, I'm going to leave the keys in the car. If anybody wants to steal it, you can go ahead. That would be entrapment because now I've put the thought of stealing in someone's mind, and when they go steal it, it would be entrapment. But if I just get out of the car and leave it, now it's not entrapment because I never mentioned stealing. You made that decision. Same thing with this bike. They set up bikes. They don't put bike locks on it. It's a nice bike sitting out in the open. Somebody's going to walk out, see it as a crime opportunity, jump on it, and ride off. It sounds like a pretty cheesy. If these guys got enough time to run around and set up bike stings, you ain't got more crime than to worry about that shit. But that's just me. I digress. Let's stick on this. I just want to make sure you understand what a bike sting and a bait. This is basically a bait bike car. A bait bike. All right?
Criminal. So this officer came out ready to tase someone for a misdemeanor they set up.
It happens fast. In less than 5 seconds, Glendale officers get out of their patrol car and tase this person with his empty hands raised.
Okay, so here's the problem. There's actually quite a few problems. One is this guy doesn't even have his gun out. 2, kid looks like a juvenile. 3, he laid the bike down and put his hands up. I didn't see any signs of resistance, and he tased him. Now, I guarantee you this sergeant who tased him is going to say, I told him to get on the ground and he didn't. So I thought he was going to run, and to prevent him from running, I deployed my taser. I don't even have to see his statement, and I can almost guarantee you that's what he said. I think it's BS. I don't think the guy should have been tased, but a taser is less than lethal. So there's a lot of agencies, and women tase people left and right for everything, but it's because they're a woman and they're allowed to. They can use more force because they're weaker. Wait a minute, I can't say that because they're equal. Well, anyway, the law says that they can use more force because they're weaker. So this cop tases him. I don't think he should have been tased, but I don't think it's the crime of the century either. But it's indicative of this department to overuse force, and the media is holding them accountable. So I'm okay with that.
A shot straight to the chest.
So he gets in the chest. He falls over. His hands are up. Was he running? Was he moving away? Did they think he was going to run? Yeah, he's got a backpack. Yeah, he's got a long shirt on. He could have had a weapon. I mean, I know how cops are going to be talking. Well, I didn't get a chance to search him, and he didn't comply, and he didn't get on the ground, and I thought he was going to run, and my experience with bike thefts is they usually get off the bike and run. Whatever. I mean...
He falls straight back. The video is dated December 5th, 2018. It's from a mall security camera on the northeast corner of this Dick's Sporting Goods store at Arrowhead Town Center. We don't know who sent us this.
Which is pretty cool. Somebody from that security company made a copy of this and sent it to the news, which I'm glad. I think people need to keep and report on government. And I'm glad the news, what I expected the news to do was send a video to the police and go, hey, you may want to investigate this. Somebody send this to us. That's what I would expect them to do because they're so crooked and unethical nowadays. But I'm kind of glad, like I said, that the news people did something with it.
This video, it came to us anonymously, an unmarked DVD sent in a generic.
Hopefully, that's not the real envelope. But, I mean, this guy wrote this. It would be pretty easy for me to go to that mall and say, I need a list of everybody who's got access to this, and I need to find them. And somebody will be like, well, Rick, you can't do that just because he said he didn't commit a crime. He didn't commit a crime. But the way that government gets around this is to say, I'm doing an investigation of this, and we need to know who sent this video, because now they're going to be a witness in case there's criminal charges, even though we know they're not going to be criminal charges. That's how investigations work. When the DAs start these investigations, say it's an investigation, we can't talk about it, and we need to go out. It gives them the ability to go under the ruse of government authority that we're seeking to investigate. So therefore, we need to find out who sent this in case we need to call them as a witness. When in fact, they probably wouldn't want to call them as a witness. They just want to know who the snitch is so they can try and get them fired. But if I was a dirty DA working for a cop working for a dirty DA, and the DA goes, you know what? I want to know who sent this video. He's out here causing problems. I want to know who this little guy is. See if we can find a charge on him. See if he accessed that unlawfully. See if we can get the business to say he didn't have their permission and he committed a crime and theft, and we'll charge him. And then I'll get a charge, and I'll stop this, and I'll send a message that you better not rat out our cops because we all work together. It'd be very easy for me to go there and go, I need everybody that had access to this camera. And I would have them all come into a room, and I'd give them a sheet of paper. And I say, I need you to address something to ABC 515 North 44th Street. And I'd have them write it out. And out of the 4 or 5 people, I'd put it next to this, and I'd be like, okay, here's the dude that sent it. It'd be so easy to find this guy. So the news media showing this, it's a little cheesy to me. Because obviously they're helping government.
Manila envelope.
If somebody sends me something, you just know right now, I destroy everything that's sent to me. It's thrown away immediately, and I don't have a copy of it or a picture of it. Now, the post office takes pictures of everything that is sent through the mail. So the post office has a picture of this, and they could go back to the post office and say, we need a picture of front and back of this envelope. And they would have this anyway, but it would be a little bit more difficult than since they put it on the freaking news. Also, because they put it on the news, now the store could say, you know what? I want to know who sent this. I don't want them working here. So I want everybody had access to write this out. And whoever we find out that did it, we're firing them. So that's another way why the media shouldn't have put that out. In my opinion.
Return address, no letter, no note. Just the footage on the DVD. The full clip lasts about 6 minutes. There's no sound. For the first minute 40 seconds, the camera just pans back and forth across the parking lot. Then it moves to focus in and follow a male riding a bike. His name is James Scott Hurst. He's 24. He rides out of the parking lot.
Okay, so now because of this video, this becomes evidence against this guy, because when they charge him, it's going to be very easy to prove that he got the bike. It would not surprise me if the cops told them, yo, we're going to do a sting. We're putting a bike here. Keep an eye on it. If you see somebody riding his bike, try to get us some video footage that we can use. It wouldn't surprise me a bit if that's why they were watching this guy on a bike. Because just to arbitrarily pick up a bike, leave it in a parking lot, and follow it doesn't sound reasonable to me. To me, the cops told him, or there was a cop in there saying, hey, we're setting this bike up. Do you mind if we sit in here with you and use your video surveillance so I can tell the cops when somebody picks it up or gets on it? That sounds more reasonable to me.
Onto a sidewalk across the street from the mall. On the timeline of the security footage, there's a marker with a note that says bike theft. It appears mall security was tracking this person with their camera and called police because...
I don't believe that. I don't think they were tracking and just called them. Doesn't make sense to me.
Glendale police quickly arrive and officers practically open their doors before they stop. Hurst immediately stopped.
That's another thing. You're telling me that security called the police, and the police were so Johnny on the spot that a two-car unit was on a suspect within seconds of leaving a parking lot? Are you kidding me? Government hasn't been that competent since they said free donut day at freaking Dunkin' Donuts. So don't tell me that the cops fucking responded so sorry. Oh, sorry, I said the F word. Anyway.
Cops. He drops the bike, raises his hands. They're empty, clearly facing forward. The officers approach. Officer Jeffrey Alloway and Sergeant Aaron Aldridge. Alway pointing a finger, Sergeant Ulrich pointing a taser, which he quickly fires. Hurst immediately drops. He clutches his stomach. The officers then turn him over and handcuff him. 2 other police units arrive shortly later.
Oh, so somebody just called the cops, and now we have 3 units immediately there. Man, they're making government look good on their response, ain't they?
We asked Jeff Noble, the former police chief and use of force expert from California, to watch the video.
Ain't no chief of police a use of force expert. Chiefs of police are not use of force experts. They don't testify. They're not called to court. They're usually administrative people who have kissed their way either one political organization or other, and they have made it to the top. They are not use of force experts, even though they review all officers' use of force.
Video.
He's compliant. He's giving up. I don't see anything in the video that would lead a reasonable officer to believe that they could use that level.
Okay, so he's using the right terminology. When cops use force, it's justified and reviewed under a reasonable officer standard.
Force in this situation.
This incident appears to violate Glendale's own taser policy. It says tasers should only be used against subjects who are exhibiting active aggression or actively resisting.
Okay, that is huge. When you violate policy, now you're subject to civil suit. Now the agency, if you sue the agency can go, it's not us. We got a policy. Here's our defense. He shouldn't use that taser. You go sue him. Now they never do that unless they just want to sell the guy out. In this case, they don't want to sell the sergeant out. He's a sergeant. They promoted him. They liked him. They want him to be a sergeant. They don't want to sell him out. They don't want to let him get sued. So they won't diss himself. But if this guy has a clear-cut case against them, if he sues the agency could very easily disown this sergeant and say, nope, he's not covered with limited immunity because he violated policy. And the only way he's in limited immunity is when where he's allowed to be and when he's complying within policy.
Resisting.
Again, we don't see that. We see just the opposite. He's in this give-up mode.
Whoever sent this video to ABC 15 likely did because of the horrific tasing incident we exposed earlier this year. Glendale police.
Okay, I already did a video on that. I'm not so sure that this was what they say it was. All the charges were dropped against that dude, by the way.
Schneider. And this incident is one experts believe is another that needs closer scrutiny.
This is not something that I would turn a blind eye to. This is something I would jump on. There's no obvious indicators that any force at all would be justified so much as a taser.
Okay, so Dave, do we know if the sergeant in that case who fired the taser was even disciplined here?
No, he wasn't.
Shocking. So now the agency just kind of lost their protection. They also just set a standard for every officer that gets disciplined now for violating policy. Those officers need to go back and go, Sergeant so-and-so violated policy and he wasn't disciplined. Why are you disciplining me? That's how you trip up agencies and use their prior conduct. It's called prior practices or prior approved practices or practices that are condoned and deemed to be okay, even though they're against policy. I always say policy isn't to hold cops accountable. It's to give the agency the ability to go after who they want and to enforce it and use it when they want to. Case in point, they didn't want to use it here. The guy clearly violated policy, and they said, we're not disciplining him.
Now, Glendale did find Sergeant Aldridge was out of policy, but he wasn't suspended or anything like that. He just had to go through some retraining on taser policy.
So the agency will say, well, we did discipline him. We gave him retraining. We didn't think it was enough to give him days on the beach, to give him a letter of counseling, to put a letter in his jacket. We just sent him to additional training. Well, that's just great. Now he gets paid not to be out on the road and he can sit back and drink coffee while he's going through taser training again. Perfect. All right. We'll end that there. I'm with the news agency on this for the most part.